Hello guys, today I'm going to share with you what, in my opinion, are the best traits in Throne and Liberty. We're going to start with PvE. For weapons, I'd say critical hit chance and heavy attack chance is always good because it's pretty decent for DPS. Then for tanks specifically, HP is always a good option. After that, I'd say if you're DPS or support, let's say a healer, you may want to consider mana regen or mana cost efficiency. Either of them are decent if you're having trouble with mana. And then for DPS, attack speed is always kind of a good thing. The reason I didn't put hit chance here is because this is for PvE and I rarely see any difficulty with hit chance in PvE. I don't think that's really that useful, but of course, if you're using the same weapon for the PvP and you feel like you might need some, then that's an option as well. Specifically for tier 2 gear, we already have very high hit chance, so that shouldn't be that much of a problem, but it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. Then for armor, I would always go with endurance. So you got obviously two types of endurance depending on your type of armor that you use. And technically, even in PvE, endurance is always good because NPCs can do criticals on you. Now, going with evasion is questionable. I guess you could try to do that as well, but that's really up to you. We have to figure out what your class can do specifically, but personally, I would most of the time choose endurance. Max HP and mana regen, that's always good as well, especially for tanks, but mana regen can be beneficial for some DPS classes as well. If they're really struggling with keeping up their resource. And then you also have cooldown speed and attack speed that are basically for helm and gloves respectively. This you would choose as well also if you're DPS or support, but also you don't want to stack too much because of diminishing returns basically. Here I didn't put movement speed for the boots because it's not that essential and it's not going to be game breaking for you if you don't have movement speed in PvE. Technically, the cape is considered armor, but it shares the traits of accessories. Almost all the time, try to put max HP as well. Then skill damage resist and skill damage boost are, again, depending on what kind of accessory you have. Some of them have resist, others have boost. That's always kind of universally good. You also have buff and debuff duration, again, based on type of accessory. Most of the time, that's also good. And in the end, you can use mana regen if you struggle once again for DPS and support. Can probably replace debuff duration if you have that option. Then for PvP traits, we'll start with weapon. Once again, critical hit chance and heavy attack chance is kind of universally good. However, this time, we're not looking for HP on the weapon because the weapon would have some really powerful other stats. Once again, you could use hit chance, like I said before, if you feel like you're struggling with some enemies. However, some of these stats would be really meta-defining and it's really gonna depend on how players decide to play for the given time. This could change at some point, so you gotta have to realize that if you encounter a lot of players that actually use evasion, then you may want to have some extra hit chance. But if most people are running endurance just like right now, then you're not really gonna have much problem with hit chance. A lot of people can already go way above 1000, and when tier 2 comes, you can easily achieve about 1500 hit chance without even stacking too much of it. Then I'd say collision and stun chance is also pretty good, depending on your class, of course, if you have access to these crowd controls. Now, if you're trying to do something else, something more specific, there might be fear, sleep, or other crowd control effects. You may want to try them, but generally speaking, the most common crowd controls are either collision or stun, so that's always good, right? And in the end, you also have mana regen and attack speed, depending on your class and if you really need some of these stats. So you just have to consider this as well. For armor, again, I would use endurance, and this time even more, because generally speaking, you try to reduce the chance of enemy doing criticals on you. Now, evasion is very questionable. You could go pretty high with evasion on tier 2, but once again, on the other side, hit chance is going even higher with tier 2 items. So I'm not quite sure. We have to see if the meta will continue to be endurance or people will try some evasion builds this time. So that really depends. And I would say the worst type of evasion, in my opinion, would be melee, because most melee classes have very high hit chance anyway, naturally. And if you want to do some evasion, then I would probably suggest to try either magic or range. They have slightly lower hit chance, so it might be a bit easier to evade this type of damage, but that's again questionable based on what the meta is going to be. Then you're also going to have max HP and mana regen. Once again, that's kind of universally good if you have that spot there. And if you want, again, based on your total stat combination, you can consider cooldown reduction, attack speed, and movement speed as well. which are for either the helm, the gloves, and the boots respectively. And then for accessory, once again, max HP, skill damage resist, and boost are kind of universally good. However, this time we might consider changing some of these. You're also going to have buff and debuff duration. Again, these can be sacrificed for either the collision resist or collision chance based on the type of accessory, or other crowd control based on your class. Now, collision resist and chance is probably one of the most common crowd controls you will encounter or have access to, but there could be also stun resist and stun chance, so keep that in mind. So generally speaking, that's going to be for this video, guys. Those are the traits that I find the most useful right now. Of course, that could be subjective. This is my opinion. You may have some other favorite stuff that may work better for you, but I think most of these are universally good. You would only want to change some of these if you're specifically trying to achieve a certain effect. So thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.